Go ahead, Sheila.
Stepping back to the $12,000 expense, I think it would be wise, probably not doable, but I think it would be wise to make that the 27,000 in case, in which we are facing a compulsory audit, and they are going to charge through the nose for that. I think that that should be increased to 27,000.
It's very likely that it could cost that much, and we don't have a choice about it. If we don't do it ourselves, or if we can't find somebody that's willing to do it, and I've already called 7 auditors who say they won't, yeah, the state's going to force it. So one thing that I did learn from the state auditor today was they aren't really in full understanding of our situation. They're trying to force us to obey laws that are literally impossible for us to obey because of what the previous board members did. Basically the conundrum, the paradox is that you can't, an auditor will not just look at random numbers and that aren't based on previous year's authentic numbers. Just like the IRS, you can't just not do your taxes, not file tax returns for your entire life and then turn one in at the end of your life and say, oh yeah, this covers everything. It just doesn't work that way. Go ahead, Sheila.
Do we have it recorded somewhere that I had asked the prior board for all financials from 2017 forward?
Yes, I believe we still have that. As long as that was in email, we definitely have it.
Okay.
So yeah, we definitely did everything we could to get all of the records from the prior board members. They claim that they've given us everything that they will. What they say that they won't give us is access to their actual QuickBooks file, which may have more district financial records in it that would help in an audit, because that QuickBooks file, that again, the district was just like a subcategory in their master QuickBooks along with 5 or 6 other companies. They didn't keep the district's books separate, and I don't think that they ever recorded anything other than what they actually did turn into the state auditor, which is completely fictitious. So that's where, that's the conundrum, is a certified public auditor will not just make up numbers out of thin air. And those are the only numbers that we can provide. That's the only numbers that the previous board members provided. So finding an auditor to take us on in the first place has proven, pretty much impossible. I spoke to 7 of them and they all said the same thing. If you don't have books, we won't audit you. It puts us at legal risk. We can't sign our names to something like that. Good, Sam.
Yes, yeah, I've got to run on a medical call. I'm looking at these numbers. I like them. I don't have a problem with going with what we have here. I'll try to make it back before the end of the meeting. If anything changes, please let me know.
Will do. And just keep in mind, this is just discussion and brainstorming. We're not making any actual decisions.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll talk more later about it. See ya. So yeah, Sheila, I generally agree that 12,000 is not a lot of money when you're talking about a government agency that has to comply with tens of thousands of pages of laws.
So, well, my point was that in that, there you go. That's what I thought would be wise to see in this proposed budget.
Yeah, might be pie in the sky numbers, but our job here is to try to be as honest and predict the future as accurately as we can so that we are doing the right thing. So the law is the right thing. We can't argue with that. The previous board members did, but we can't. So yeah, $800 for online services versus the $566 we spent last year, because none of it's being donated for free anymore. ORC and lab fees are definitely going to go up. The price sheet that they provided, basically the $7,800 a year that they're quoting us was, that's based on the $650 a month just to have them on retainer and have access to their licenses. It was $450 a month that we were paying for that in 2022, but they said because of our rather unusual and uncomfortable situation, they don't feel comfortable charging the $450 rate anymore. They're going to up that by $200 a month just to cover their butt for and it's perfectly honest in my opinion for them to be covering their butt for the extra risk that we put them at and their company at for being the way that we are. So new charges, so it went up from whatever it was before, like $6,300, something to $7,800 a year. New charges of $6,300 a year if we go for the weekly visit package that they were talking about. And basically that $6,300 a year would be, and plus I'm guessing $1,200 a year, $100 a month for meter reading. So the $6,300 plus the $1,200 would be new charges to account for the free services, the volunteer services that members of this community were providing in 2022. We just can't continue to do that. Again, the district doesn't have proper insurance. Whoever goes down to that pump house and tests chlorine and whatever, if something goes wrong, it would be their own personal liability insurance, if they had it, that would have to bail them out. So it's really not a good idea for private individuals to do free labor for the district, because if something goes wrong, it's their fault and they'll be they'll be legally and financially liable for it. So we were getting $7,500 worth of free volunteer labor, but we can't count on that in the future, and we can't expect anyone else to take over for us. Lab fees were about $12,000, $13,000. Those are only going to get more expensive. Lab materials and testing facilities aren't cheap to run. So I figured 14,000 instead of 12 to 13 like it was. And then the $1,800 in paperwork, that was also money that we spent in 2022. There's really not much way around it, because that paperwork has to be prepared and submitted by a certified operator. So that comes to about 31,100, where previous year was 22,000 and change. So about 10,000 extra that we're spending, that there's really not much other option unless anybody has any ideas. So if no comments there, well, actually, let's talk more about, well, yeah, there really isn't any other option with trying to save that money. I just can't see it working any other way. Somebody had their hand up that I missed? No? All right, moving on. Postage and mailing. Almost all of this is sending out the manganese letters, buying stamps, envelopes. We were getting the folding and stuffing and stamping and sending of those envelopes for free, again, through community volunteerism, but we can't really continue doing that either. Fortunately, I found an online service called LetterStream that basically we can, they already have our mailing list. It's easy to maintain that list in the future on their website, and anything that we need to mail out, we can just send as a PDF to their website, say how many copies we want and what date we need it to go out, and it'll send it to everybody on the mailing list. So that will probably actually turn out to be slightly cheaper than doing it the way we've been doing it. Good, Sheila.
So currently we get the manganese letters monthly, and we had been in talks about being able to go to quarterly for that letter, and that would directly affect the amount we're spending on postage. Not that it's going to help a lot, but that could go down if we got the approval to go to quarterly on that manganese letter.
Yeah, that would be really good if we could do that. But one thing that I just recently kind of thought about was if we have to do monthly manganese notices, and manganese is not an EPA mandated substance that we have to remove, why hasn't AWWS or CDPHE updated that public health notice to include the uranium and selenium that are EPA regulated substances that are exceeding their maximum legal values? So if they're not already talking about it, CDPHE is probably going to add several pages to the monthly public health notice, one for uranium and one for selenium. That probably won't affect the price of the mailings a whole lot. It won't affect the cost of the actual stamps or anything, the postage, but it is, another extra page that needs, or sorry, 2 more extra pages that need to be printed and also need to be printed in Spanish.
Go ahead, Sheila.
It would affect the paperwork figure under ORC and lab fees, though.
Yeah, hopefully not a ton, because literally all Vanessa does for the monthly manganese letter is change the date at the bottom of it. And I don't know how much they're charging us for that, but it's, part of the CDPHE requirement is it has to be sent out monthly, and it has to be sent out on the date that is printed at the bottom of the monthly notice.
It also has to be submitted to CDPHE that it's been done, and it has to be submitted in the proper format or it becomes a violation.
Yep, so you're right. That will cost AWWS a little bit more in time to do, 3 chain of custody records. So yeah, letter stream is good, very easy. It's the only way we can sustain in the future. Again, the district doesn't have an office. It doesn't have office equipment. It doesn't have a printer. We have a laptop for the treasurer, but all printing services to date have been donated to the district. So moving next, this is a tough one. We really need some kind of storage unit. We have water softeners. They're supposed to be stored in climate control, but that's crazy to think about, spending $450 a month on climate controlled storage. But we need something. The district does have assets, and right now most of them are just sitting out behind the pump house getting rained and snowed on. And the ones that aren't sitting outside are sitting where they shouldn't be, and someone's privately funding the climate controlled aspect of that storage. So I don't know what to do there. It's just another one of those things where we're the only district that doesn't own a building with an office and a telephone and a trash can and running water and stuff like that. How many other water districts don't have running water? So I don't know what to do about storage. We have stuff, and it's a major legal liability for private individuals to be holding that stuff in their garage. Go ahead, Lynn.
I think on that one, we need to revisit that number because there may be some other options. Because they're close by here, you're not going to get a climate controlled storage unit anywhere. And so no one's going to want to have to go down into Denver or down into Brighton or into Greeley. I don't even think there's climate control in Fort Morgan. So that's something we may need to revisit. I would not set that one in stone. There may be some other options.
Yeah, let me take that out for now entirely. We have to do something. The district has records that it's required by law to keep permanently, and those can't just be kept kept in somebody's house like they are now.
Yeah, and I understand that, but a storage unit isn't going to be much safer either because they get broken into all the time. So we need to have a better, more secure way to do that. And I think that's something we need to work on and discuss and maybe brainstorm.
Yep. Yeah, these are physical records we're talking about. We can't store them in the pump house. If there's a leak in there or a flood and they all get wet, that's a major problem for a district to lose all of its records.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree.
I'm not going to donate it.
Well, we can.
So yeah, I would say on that line item, we need to leave that one be for just now until we can figure out something else.
Yeah, Sheila had her hand up.
Yeah. Let me ponder renting that one office out to you for the storage of the water softeners. They'd be in where it's warm all the time.
Yeah, Yeah, I spent about $500 in electricity keeping them warm last year, and I'm doing it again this year now, and I'm not very happy about that.
Well,
Best thing to do
let
would
me
be if we could,
consider that.
yeah, even better would be if we didn't have to store them in the first place by, providing them or doing the swap out like we were trying to do. Several people have turned in dead ones in trade for a new unit, and I was hoping that we could get rid of all 11 of them in that manner, but not very many people have stepped up yet. So I think we've got, off the top of my head, 8 remaining, possibly 7, and out of those 7, I know at least 3 people. I know at least one house that doesn't have a water softener at all, and then I know of 2 that are almost surely beyond repair and need to be swapped out. So yeah, I just want to get rid of the damn things. They're not supposed to belong to the district in the first place. Fred was never supposed to be handing them out in the first place. They're needed out here, but they are not supposed to be district property or have anything to do with the district at all.
Well, I've
What I
told
don't,
you I'd like to get a new one.
yeah, if we can, as a longtime repairman, I used to be an Apple certified repair technician, also Xerox, HP, Dell, Lexmark, Canon, Ricoh. I spent a good part of my career running a repair shop, electronics and equipment repair shop. And what I do not want to do, and what I would never do, for any of the other 2 districts that I've worked for, or any of the other company I've worked for, is replace something that doesn't need to be replaced, or replace something that can be fixed for, cheaper or easier. So let me take a look at your softener and
Okay.
diagnose it and see whether it needs to be replaced or whether it can just be fixed or tuned up or whatever, because I would really like these units to go to the people who need them most. There was one
Right.
that I replaced. You open it up and it's just nothing but black sludge inside. It's supposed to be light orange colored little resin pellets, that you can pick, that are, are clean. But these orange resin pellets were completely saturated in manganese sludge, and the unit was completely non-functional. Water wouldn't even flow through it anymore. So we have to focus on, the
Right.
worst cases. First, the person that doesn't have one at all, they need one.
Right.
Second, if there are any that are completely destroyed from manganese, those are first on the list for replacement. If they're only partially contaminated with manganese, I can fix them and flush out the junk, dissolve all the junk out of there for about $50.
Right.
But if they're too far gone, then, water won't even go through them and you can't flush them out anymore.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, that's probably enough said about storage and water softeners at this point. That's a whole, not really anything to do with budget. It's just a problem. We'll have to deal with it later. Repairs and maintenance, I'm budgeting $0 for 2023. The developer should be responsible for everything related to, fixing the system and probably maintaining it too, until they actually hand it over to us like the county wants them to. Go ahead, Sheila.
I don't think the state's going to accept 0 on repairs and maintenance unless you are absolutely sure to have that notation in there.
Yeah. I will ask them, the DLG, what they think of that before actually submitting anything or before we formalize anything. But Joe McConnell knows what's going on here. He knows that we're in pretty dire straits. So I don't know what they would say. I'll definitely be talking to both him and the state auditor, Crystal Dorsey, more. Crystal actually wants to talk to Joe McConnell, and it's very unusual and very uncommon for one state agency to communicate with another state agency. Usually the left and the right hand don't care what each other are doing at the state level, but now suddenly they do, based on the information that I gave Crystal Dorsey earlier today. So potentially some good news there, but no promises, or I can't say much yet until more calls have been made. So yeah, chlorine treatment, we already talked about that. We can save a little bit of money. We already own the chlorine tester, and now it would just be AWWS bringing a 5-gallon tote, whenever they notice that our 25-gallon barrel is getting towards the low mark. And then utilities, I don't see a whole lot of change there. Electricity and surcharges will go up a little bit, but having personally observed all of our power consumption like a hawk for the last 12, 10 or 11 or 12 months, I think that we're that this is a accurate estimate of what we're going to spend. Excuse me one sec, I have to go get some water.
Well, overall, I think we have everything pretty much covered. Other than I don't like not having any repairs and maintenance money in there.
Yeah, it's really the developer's responsibility, and we've even gotten an email from their attorney after we pestered them enough and said, are you actually going to do anything about this? Almost a year has gone by and you've just been ignoring us. And the attorney did at one point say, our intent is to fix up the system and get it approved by the state and then transfer it to you. But we were expecting more than just cleaning the wells for $7,000 and performing a $2,000 repair that should have been done before the generator was purchased. And then Doria even sent us the bill for that $1,900 repair, even though the generator belongs to Prairie View Ranch Partners. So we are not paying that bill. This district never contracted with that electric company to service or have an annual maintenance agreement on that generator. Nothing behind that gate currently belongs to us except for the chlorine tester. It has no insurance. The district couldn't insure it if it wanted to because it doesn't belong to us according to the developer. So if they are claiming that they still own it, then they need to own all of the problems that go along with it.
Well, wouldn't that also include the chlorine?
It should include all of our expenses, but we're in this weird situation where they thought that there was just one thing that they were in charge of, but it turns out that the district is actually a separate thing that cannot be owned by a developer. So
Right.
now that the conjoined twins have been separated, we don't know what the custody and parental rules are about that stuff at this point. It's never happened before, and that's what everybody has to understand is what happened to Prairie View Ranch Water District and the way our district was operated is unprecedented in state history. It is not supposed to work this way, and nobody can even figure out how it was able to work this way for 13 plus years. Go ahead, Sheila.
So I don't see anything in this budget, and it's required to be there for putting 3% of the top line into reserves. That is required to be in the budget.
Yeah, it's implied. It's state law, and it's not part of the budget. It's worse. It's what we take out of it's what we take out of revenue. I don't think it's an actual budget item. Was it on the previous budget?
Item.
Let's take a look. Where is that?
Yeah, down at the
Transfer to
bottom.
reverse. Okay.
Yeah.
So we only budgeted 1887 for that. We've got about over 3,000 and change in the reserve currently.
But what I'm saying is this current budget or this current proposed budget that you're showing does.
Yes, I understand that.
And so what I'm seeing from the proposed budget is the water rates have to go up to at least $125 a month to make that budget zero. And then you got to tack the 3% reserves on top of that to make this proposed budget zero.
So that would be 75,334.20. That doesn't sound right. 73,140. or sorry, wrong calculator.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 75, I think. 75 something.
Well, yeah, first off, let's figure out, so yeah, what does our revenue need to be to pay for $73,000 worth of stuff? At least 73,000. So let's plug 75,000 in here, plus service transfer and late fees, 77,150. That would still, oh wait, that's
Yeah. No, that's not right.
inverted. I have my calculator, my formula wrong there, but you know, that's only $4,000 left over. If we charged 70, if we brought in 77,000, we would actually have 4,000 left over. So what's that divided by 48 or 49? Averages out to, and divide that by 12, $131 a month.
I'm not seeing the reserves in there, Jesse. 75,000, 3% of 75,000.
79,464 divided by 49 water taps divided by 12 months, $135 a month. And that's with no repair budget and spending $27,000 on a financial audit. That's all it's going to do is show that we're missing $1.5 million.
Yep, that's no repairs and no insurance and a financial audit, compulsory financial audit.
Thank you very much, Prairie View Ranch Partners. This is their doing. I don't know how we can undo this, and this doesn't even take into account the fact of the whole auditor situation, where currently, facing a financial compulsory audit or not, we have to do at least applications for exemption. It's basically a short audit. We have to pay for one of those every single year. The private, the developer never did that. They did them themselves, which in and of itself is a violation of state law. So my main concern, and why I'm trying to talk to the DLG and OSA and try to get them on the same page, is we're in a paradox where it's illegal if we don't turn in financial audits, and it will be illegal if we do turn in financial audits, because currently we don't have any legitimate numbers to base an audit on, which means a certified accountant won't work with us, which means we would have to turn the audit in ourselves and state on the audit form that yes, we are skilled in governmental accounting and we're legally allowed to do this, which we aren't. So that is the paradox that could cause this district to never function properly. And what I'm worried about is not just for us as current board members, but any future board members, the longer we sit in these seats, the more time goes on, the more times we will have no choice but to violate the law and put ourselves and the district and the entire community at greater and greater legal risk as time goes on. So this is the paradox that I'm trying to solve with the OSA, is that if we are going to be audited, that audit has to be treated as though this district never had any financial activity until September 2021. Unless the audit that we turn in is the first audit in history, it will be fraudulent because it's not based on any prior audits. So this is what I'm trying to convey to the state auditor, is that we are stuck in a situation where there's only one law that can potentially help us, and they're not upholding it. It's a duty that they have, and they're already trying to, they've been trying to tell us that, well, we don't have to follow our own laws, basically is what they've been saying. And I'm trying very hard for them to change their mind, because if there's one specific law, 29-1-607, and if the state doesn't follow that law, and which they wrote, then this will just go on forever, where every year we will be violating financial regulations for the rest of time. And no board member should be expected to sign up for a job where it's impossible for them to obey the law. Thank you, Prairie View Ranch Partners.
Yep. Yeah, and people are already complaining about the $70 a month water rate. Can you
And that,
imagine what they're going to do at 135?
yeah, people are already threatening if it goes any higher, we're just going to stop paying our bill. And they don't realize that if they stop paying their bill, then we will stop paying our bills to MCREA and AWWS. And our only choice at that point is to turn the pumps off and never turn them back on.
Right. And then it's up to each homeowner to figure out what they're going to do
Yep.
for water.
There are no options. You can't dig a cistern out here and truck water in. You know, you're looking at $200 a truckload for 3,500 gallons, plus whatever that's just the trip charge, the delivery charge of 200 to bring it out here and put it in your tank. And if your tank is less than what you use in a month, you'll just have to get by with as big of a tank as you can afford and have space on your property that's far enough away from your septic tank and meets all of the other public health regulations involved with owning a cistern. So I just don't see this entire, if this entire community had to individually bury, cisterns in their yard, we're looking at 200 plus truckloads a month of water being dragged in here, ruining our roads, ruining the highways, costing everybody a fortune. It just won't work. So this is the situation that we're in. We were put in this situation by a profiteer, and this is where we're at. I don't know what else to say.
I agree.
Thank you, Prairie View Ranch Partners.
Yep.
Well, I would say we need to review some of these numbers and go over, because this is just a work session right now, nothing's set in stone, and see if there's any place that we can save here or there. And reconvene back in January and see what we've come up with.
Yep.
No, we need to do it before the 31st, right? We have to submit a
draft budget.
Yeah, but we have a board meeting at the first part of January there, so that gives us another work session. And if we need another work session, we can do one in the middle of January before we submit.
Right.
Yep.
I'm okay with submitting on the 31st at 5 p.m. They probably wouldn't even know if we did submit.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they would know.
They won't know for another 6 months. This is the state of Colorado we're talking about here.
You were exactly correct, Lynn. You were exactly correct. All of this district's prior election documents and financial documents were sent in at least 10 months after the due date every year. And that's about how long it takes for the state to notice and send out a letter saying, hey, how come we didn't hear from you in January? It's now November.
Yeah, it's like, wow, you found out I was dead a long time ago. But yeah, I say these just give us some numbers to start with. And, we're going to be reworking this. We can look them over and see if we can come up with some other solutions as well, because I know we're in talks on different things. So this just gives us a jumping off point.
Yep. I hope we can pinch some pennies somewhere, because this looks really, really painful. And that 130 is just the base rate. I don't know if we could get away with, maybe if we had to charge $130 a month, maybe we should just go to unlimited, because at that point, everyone's paying so much anyway that the actual cost of the water is nothing compared to the cost of an audit and the actual testing of that water and everything else. So, at some point there will be a break even.
Yeah, and that's something we'll need to consider if it does look like we actually have to raise rates, that we adjust our gallons, and what that pays for. Because we've got to make it fair to the people that use a lot and to the people that don't use very much. There's got to be something in the middle there. So
yep, like these numbers we were looked at last time, somebody who uses 283,000 should not pay the same as someone who uses 10,000 in a year.
Yep,
it's just not fair.
No, I agree with that 100%. So, but at least this gives us a jumping off point. We kind of know what we've got to look at, and we can see when and where and how we can fix X, Y, and Z, and to the best of our abilities, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
All right. I
So
motion
before we adjourn,
Katie.
before adjournment, last agenda item is public commentary. Mary, got anything to say?
Nope, I'm good, Jesse. Thanks.
Alrighty, I think aside from Sheila, anybody else? She's the only other one on besides the board.
Nope, I had my say.
Alrighty, I appreciate your time, everybody. This is not very happy, but it is what it is. Calculators don't lie.
Right. All right. Well, good night, everybody. I guess Lynn put a motion in to adjourn. I'll second it.
Yep, I third that. Sam has already dropped off because of his emergency call, so the meeting is adjourned at 7:33. Thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.